Hi guys, it's Mrs. Nugent, and today we are going to be learning how to make a three-dimensional portrait of a character, and you get to choose whatever kind of character you want. This example is one that's kind of spooky and fun, but you could make a regular person or you could make an animal, any kind of character that you can think of. What makes this three-dimensional is that the face is popping forward. We know that three-dimensional things are things that take up space. So for example, a flat picture of a person would not take up space. That would be considered two-dimensional. But something that is three-dimensional is something that pops out like an object rather than a picture. So today what we are going to be doing is beginning to make our own face. So the very first thing that we are going to do is we are going to be creating a plan for our face. And so to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to start with a white piece of paper and we're going to just draw a quick sketch of what we want to do. This shouldn't take us more than 10 minutes. To make our plan, what we are going to do is we're going to start with a square shape, because when this pops forward, it's going to be in kind of a square shape for the head. So we're going to start by drawing a square in the middle of our paper. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add some details to make it into a character. So this is where you get to be creative and decide what you would like to make. For mine, I'm gonna make mine into a cat. So I'm gonna start by adding some cat features. So one thing I'm gonna add is I'm gonna add some ears up the top. Another thing I'm gonna add is some eyes. So I'm gonna make some round little eyes here. And you can decide what you want your eyes to be doing. You could add a little pupil in the inside of them. You could make them looking sideways, looking up, looking down, or just looking straight forward like this one is. The next thing we're gonna do is we are going to draw our mouth, and we're gonna skip our nose, and I will show you that in a little while why we're skipping our nose. But we're gonna skip our nose for right now, and we're gonna add on some other details. So another thing I could add would be maybe some whiskers. And then I need to add a body onto my cat. So I'm gonna have it just come down like this for a neck. And I'm gonna add a collar because I think that's something that'll make it really look like a cat. Now that I've got these basic details, I'm gonna label all of the parts of this so that I know what colors of paper I'm going to need. So when I do this, I'm going to take a pencil and I'm going to write down the color in the area of that space. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start with the face. So maybe I want my cat to be an orange cat. So I'm gonna write orange here. I'm gonna make a little arrow that points to the eye and write white and black. For my ears, maybe I want them to be orange on the outside and pink on the inside. So I just added some little triangles. I'm gonna write pink and orange. And I'm gonna continue doing that for all of my parts of my face, including the lines for the mouth, including the whiskers, and the collar, etc. The next thing we're gonna do is we are going to get our paper for making our face. So it's important to keep this off to the side so that you can see your plan and you can refer back to it when you're getting your papers. I'm gonna set this one off to the side so we can focus on our new project, and I'm going to start by taking this orange piece of paper that's going to become the face, and I'm gonna turn it up and fold in a small tab on the shorter side of the paper. So if you look at this, it's a rectangle right now. I'm gonna fold a tab on the short side, on the bottom, as well as the top. So I'm gonna just fold a little bit up and crease. And these are really important because those are going to be the parts that are gonna make the face turn three-dimensional as we get going. Now that I have those, I know this is going to be the back of my face, so it's time to flip it forward, and I'm gonna turn it back so that it is sideways, so that those tabs are gonna be on the sides of the face, not on the top and the bottom. Now that I have that done, it's time to start adding in my details. So one thing that I'm gonna start with is I'm going to start with making my eyes. And so I'm going to create my eyes from a scrap piece of paper. So for our main piece, we're gonna use a new piece of paper, but for everything else for this project, we're going to use scraps. If I want, I can make my eyes be not the same exact shape and size. I could make them be different. Or if you do want them to be the same shape and size, you can fold your piece of paper, and we're gonna just cut one oval. But because my paper is folded, I'm gonna end up getting two eyes out of it. It doesn't have to be perfect, you just need to try your best. So now I've got two little ovals for eyes, and I can even flip-flop them so that they're symmetrical. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to cut out the pupils for my eyes, and I'm going to do that from this scrap piece of paper. Again, I'm going to fold it in half so that I get two circles that are about the same size. And I'm going to cut out a smaller circle to become the pupil of the eye of my cat. So the pupil is a little black dot that's in your eye. On this one, it's kind of big. All right, so I've got those kind of set up. Now, I wanted to talk to you about gluing. So when we are gluing anything onto our face of our character, what we're going to do is we're going to start with the smaller piece and glue it to the larger piece. So my black dot is smaller than my white dot. So I'm gonna glue my black dot, so I'm setting it on here and moving it around, and I'm gonna glue this black dot onto the white dot that is up here. By doing it this way, I'm able to make sure that the glue only goes on the back of the black dot and it's not sticking out around the sides at all. I'm gonna hold this down and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I hope it sticks. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this one. You'll notice with my glue stick that when I'm gluing, I don't have it twisted out very far at all. We don't need to twist out our glue stick very far. We just need a tiny little bit squished out. Otherwise, it causes a sticky, icky mess. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to be gluing our eyes onto the face. So for this step, we're still going to glue the smallest part onto the bigger part. So I'm going to pick up my eyes and put them on the glue stick. Again, I'm going to move it around, getting just a little bit of glue on the edge of the eye. I set it down, and I'm going to do the next eye. And now that I've got both eyes glued, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I hope it sticks. The next thing I'm going to do is move on to making my whiskers. So when I go to do the whiskers, I have it written down that we're going to have whiskers that are white, and so I'm going to make sure that I cut out some white strips for my whiskers. And so I'm gonna just cut from the same scrap that I used for my eyes, and we're gonna make the whiskers. Now, for whiskers, if you end up doing these, or for hair, it's really important that you don't make it too thin. So I'm gonna just make these little rectangles. I know that that's thicker than a normal whisker, but that'll make it show up, and it'll also make it be a little bit more strong and sturdy once we get it glued on. For your whiskers, you can choose if you would want to have them glued down, and so there are parts of this that can be kind of sticking up and off of the page. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to glue down the end of them so that they're a little bit loose, which I think will be a little bit more fun when we pop this forward and make it three-dimensional. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the end here, and then put it down, and again I'm going to press and hold. Continue adding all of the details of your face. When you go to glue on anything that's going to stick out the top, like maybe hair or ears, it's important to flip your paper over and put the glue along the back side of it. This will make them stronger when we curve the project to make it three-dimensional. The last thing we're going to do is we are going to add the nose, and we're going to make that three-dimensional as well. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut a strip that's a long rectangle for the nose. Next, we're going to fold in tabs just like we did on the sides of the face at the beginning of the project. So I'm going to fold each end in just a little bit. So you can see I've got the two little tabs here. I'm going to put glue on top of the first little tab, and I'm going to glue that where I want the bottom of the nose to be. It's really important that you press and hold this down and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I hope it sticks, to make sure that it gets really stuck down. Next, we're going to do the same thing with the top part. When we go to glue this down, we're going to make sure we pull it down a little bit closer so that the nose actually sticks out like a real nose. Now that we have this sheet done, it is time to move on to creating our background. For my project, I've decided that my background is going to be blue. The first thing I'm going to do is set my face down on top of my paper. I want to make sure that the ears aren't sticking out off the top, and you should do the same with yours. Make sure that none of the hair is sticking out above the paper. The next thing that we need to do is add the body for the cat. I know that I want my body to be orange and I want my collar to be yellow. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by laying this on here and just seeing if my yellow is wide enough to make the collar. I noticed that my yellow scrap isn't quite long enough, so I have a choice to make. I could either go back to the scrap bin and get a bigger scrap, or I can trim down the orange to match up with the yellow, and that's what I'm going to do. Now that I have that trimmed down, it's time to trim my collar down to the right size. As always, we're going to glue our small piece to our big piece, and so for this one, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put my glue on the back of my yellow smaller piece of paper, and I'm going to carefully line that up to the edges and stick it on to my cat's neck. Next, I'm going to decide where I want my cat's head to be positioned. So I don't want it to have a super long neck, so I'm actually going to move it down just a little bit so that the neck appears a little shorter and it just looks like the cat's ears have a little more space at the top. Then I'm going to put glue on the back of this piece of paper, and I'm going to make sure that I just do it at the very top so that I don't end up gluing any extra onto the table. I'm going to slide this up just a little bit above where the head is going to be, because we want to make sure that when we pop it forward that we still see no blue space in between the head and the neck of the cat. Lift this up, and I'm going to add just a little extra glue here to make sure it's nice and stuck down. And once I have that done, I'm going to flip my blue paper over and I'm going to trim off any extra so that my paper is just rectangular blue shape. Now that I have my neck finished, it would be time to glue down my face. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some glue along this first tab on the side. When I go to glue this down, I'm going to make sure that I leave it a little bit off-centered, because in the end we're going to be popping it forward and gluing it down. And so we want to make sure that in the end our space is nice and even. So right now it's actually going to look like it's not very even until we pop it forward. So once I've got it figured out where I need to go, I'm going to put this down here. And again, I'm going to do my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I hope it sticks. And I'm being really careful with those little whiskers. I don't want to end up breaking one of those off. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put glue on the other side. And a good way to do this is to just open it back up so that that tab is stuck down, but the face is not yet. And I'm going to put the glue on the back side here. I pull it forward, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop that face a little bit forward, and I'm going to stick my hand inside the tunnel to get that really stuck down. So I stuck my hand inside of the little tunnel here, and I'm going to do my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I hope it sticks. And now you can see that I have a finished cat with the face popping forward as a 3-dimensional character portrait.